My name's Adrienne Lacey. I'm the recreation superintendent for the city of Marinette, which is in Wisconsin. Our camp is a municipal camp. It's a daily camp for kids between the ages of 5 to 12 is our main camp.
I'm Kate DeAngelis. I'm the therapeutic recreation specialist for Lexington Recreation and Community Programs. We have two kind of typical summer day camps for individuals ages 4 to 11. And then our other day camp is 7 to 11.
My name is Dan Croft, and I'm the Associate Director of the Plugged In Band Program based out of Needham, Massachusetts.
I'm Francis Hickey. I'm the Inclusion Coordinator at Plugged In.
Is our summer camp and our summer session. In July and August, we run two-week sessions, making music, writing original songs, creating music videos for them, taking workshops on every possible musical topic that you could ever imagine.
We've not advertised as a special needs camp of any sort or disabilities camp. And so the point is the inclusion. So they need to be with their peers.
Especially for people in the disability community and the non-disability community. Opportunities for like legitimate, real social connection just don't come along that often.
Relationships between campers with and without disabilities is super important because both parties engage in that relationship, learn from each other, support one another, and really kind of gain a new perspective and understanding of just people in general. And it's
there are certain children that as a regular camp, I can't accommodate, but most of the time there's something I can do to make it work. And it's always been like part of what why it just floors me that why wouldn't we is our thing. And I think because that's our attitude, like my staff is, like I said, 14 to 18-ish. They're kids themselves. So if it's modeled at the top, it goes down. I told you, we also have a 25-year-old volunteer who's on the spectrum, who's here 4 days a week. She's taught my staff a lot. Because we're modeling it, our campers model it, and I don't think the kids in our camp really have a firm grasp of like someone's different because they're not. And if we're not treating them that way, then they're friends.
So opportunities for the group to kind of get to know each other. We do split kids up into smaller groups, so it's not like a group of 80 and really overwhelming, but coming up with games and partner games and kind of making it like a mandatory thing where we're all going to learn about and support one another. And that's been really great too, because then we can find out like, oh, hey, Susie over here loves Peppa Pig and so does Ryan. My favorite place to see true inclusion and true relationships being built is on the playground because it's self-directed play. No one is telling you that you're playing with something incorrectly or you're supposed to do it another way. It's such a great space to be imaginative, creative. Inclusion is the best when it's natural. And I think our job as recreation professionals and camp professionals is to just create those pockets of opportunities where people can do that, because
we don't play a lot of games or do a lot of activities that don't involve everybody. So like we try not to do elimination games, or if we do elimination games, it's a very fast game so that you're going to come right back in. But when it comes to being a game on the turf or we're building Legos together or something like that, kids don't care. A kid's a kid.
So we bring all of our students in to Harvard Square to perform directly for the people. Students come together and gel and really rely on each other for support and those friendships and social connections that they've made to get them, through this activity. Because it can be a little nerve-wracking suddenly jumping out on the street where there's a complete unknown audience, where anybody who could be walking by, could potentially stop and watch your show. So the social connections and the friendships formed within the bands are really, really pivotal.
And if we see a kiddo that is struggling, like we know which kiddos we can sort of, hey, so-and-so wants to play the game too. Can you go ask them to play? And that helps. Or so-and-so sitting at the table alone. Do you guys want to go sit with them today for me? And like, I'm not above a dum-dum bribery. We use dum-dums, us dum-dum suckers as our bribery for everything here. I'm not above saying, hey, if you guys sit at this table today and can come and tell me something new, like I'll give the whole table dum-dums. Like, it's not about the kiddo that's, it's that all 5 of you now are going to come tell me, even though I knew that that kid was the one that needed.
And sometimes if staff notice that like the same kids are going to the same activities or the same free choices, then they'll kind of like push to make those connections. Like, hey, like, Lily over there seems to always do art, and so do you. Like, why don't we go ask her if we want to work on a project together? Is on our caregiver and parent signups, asking people for permissions to share their contact info so that we can keep those connections post camp, because we see that they're making a great connection, but their caregivers or parents might not know, and they might not go home and tell them. So making sure that we as staff kind of give that opportunity for it to extend beyond us has been awesome, and so many amazing, incredible relationships have formed from it.
I had one young man, we've done science experiments where we let him lead because he's super smart, but then the other kids really enjoy getting into it, and he likes that teaching role, because that can be awkward when he's like, why don't you know that? And instead we put him in the lead role of helping.
Giving some participants without disabilities more of a peer helper and peer mentor role. This has worked so well for us, especially the campers that are kind of at the age where they're going to age out soon and maybe become a counselor or a leader in training, and they're looking for something a little bit more than just the daily activities of camp. Having them peer partner with them and asking like, hey, do you mind going in this game and running with our friend over there who looks like they could use some help? And then like they become really invested, and we've had so many kids like start working with the participants where our staff will then back off because their peers are doing such an amazing job, and that ends up making their own relationship. They want to see each other more. They want to spend time outside of camp together. Notice is during free time, like having different choice stations. Like you can either do playground or art, and then participants kind of naturally go towards whatever their actual interest is. And that has been such a great way to make friends.
Like we have a couple children with disabilities that just can't ice skate, but we also have children that don't like to ice skate. And so there's always been from the beginning, if ice skating's on the lesson plan, there's a second room with something going on in it, so that kids get to choose between the two.
When you have students that maybe have experienced life in a slightly different way, have a different idea and viewpoint because of a disability, place like band class, where there's already this shared love of music that makes these interactions so easy.
Everyone has those games or activities that you run where there's a few kids who do not want to play at all. And a lot of times our participants that have disabilities might take breaks during different games or activities. So we invite them and encourage them to kind of make their own game to the side with the participants who are not playing. We will say, here's some chalk. Why don't we all play tic-tac-toe? Or, here's this ball. Let's see how many times we can pass it back and forth with one another. And then once that game starts to get going, the staff will kind of back away and let them self-direct and self-lead that little game with just, some supervision. We encourage people to ask questions about their friends and about why they might not use their words to communicate, or why they might not use their legs to get around places. We love when we get those questions, because then we kind of take it as a learning opportunity for the entire cohort of campers. It takes kind of that like uneasiness that people have sometimes. And I always tell everyone, like, you don't need special skills or special trainings to talk or be friends with someone with a disability. Like, you just need to be a human. When people are asking questions, like putting it back on them. Why is this person yelling? And we'll say like, oh, they're having a hard time. What does it look like when you have a hard time? Or why is this person not talking but using an iPad? Like, oh, they communicate this way. How do you communicate? Because sometimes if a kid sees another kid having a really hard time, maybe they're really escalated or sensory seeking, and they might be, a little loud, or their body might not be super safe in that moment. That can be scary for a kid, right? To see that and to think maybe someone in their group isn't okay. So once we like normalize that and talk about how it's just, a part of that individual's person, then there's more opportunity for them to kind of go up and be friends with them. And
if a parent or a guardian chooses their child to be in my program, they want their kid to learn how to exist and coexist. And so it's my job to hold that kid to a same standard. One of my little men this summer bit one of his friends on the knee. We talked to the friend about what had happened. He had felt like she was cheating. We still don't bite. And we apologized to each other. So she knew that he was being held accountable. They went back to playing right away. And so rather than say, oh, it's just so and so, it's okay, that kid's not the kid, the bitey was not scared of this kid because she knew there were consequences to actions and that she'd be held to the same ones.
True inclusion is not breaking rules or making exceptions for people. It's kind of bridging the gap between the skills that they have and the skills required for that activity or for following that guideline. And safety is always going to be our number one priority. So we have behavior standards that every single participant needs to adhere to. Some people might have, you know, an adaptation where once they start escalating, like we have a behavior plan we follow, but if they are breaking any of the camp rules or guidelines, we're going to follow the same kind of action steps that we would for any camper. It actually hinders inclusion when you don't hold people to the same standards, because then it creates either jealousy or fear or a sense of unfairness.
That inclusive practices are for everybody. They benefit everybody. It is not something that you are doing specifically for students with disabilities, whether it's, taking a break halfway through a class, whether it's doing feelings check-ins at the beginning of class, whether it's providing visual aids for students. You're making your program and your camp and your organization better for absolutely every student that is involved, every volunteer that's involved, every staff member that's involved. When you have these friendships and these social connections that are forming between our students with and without disabilities, that it gives the teachers in the classroom the opportunity to focus more on just teaching the music and having fun.
We have people in the Child Protective Services system that are directing families that have special needs to our programming because they're seeing that the kiddos are getting something out of it. It's quality, there's good kids, and that they're going to get to be in the inclusive part.
It's huge. My staff actually brought this up this summer that they've noticed over the past few years, with so much inclusion happening and so much exposure to people of different ability levels, they are seeing a change in the younger kids that are coming through our programs, where they're just accepting in nature, and it's just the norm that you have people and friends of all different abilities in the program. The parents and caregivers, that you can tell that there's a sense of ease when they walk into an environment and don't have to kind of mask for them and their child, and don't have to put up a front of, fitting into the norm, right? Everyone is accepted.
One thing that I always tell my students, that throughout their lives, they're going to be working with a multitude of different people who see the world differently and engage with the world differently. They're going to be able to, then take these experiences that they have in band class and summer camp and apply them to nearly everything that they do in the future. Band class is this wonderful little microcosm of life, ultimately, just with a really cool soundtrack instead.
That's one of our main values and goals, is to create relationships that are meaningful and actually last.
My kiddo that's been with me for 4 years, I'll get a walkie-talkie call that says, his name, situation, please come. I go get up there, and it turns out that it's him and 2 other boys refusing to clean up because they're playing a game together. It's just normal 9-year-old behavior. That was him having this inclusive friendship of that they'd had this imaginative game that they were going on and on. I said to his mom then later on, I said, do you know these other 2 children? And she said, I don't, but I know them through Facebook. She's like, are they kids that you think he would play with? And I said, he is. And she said, good, he's been asking for a play group. And she said, it's the first time he's ever asked.
In one of our summer camps, there was a student on the autism spectrum who was an absolutely spectacular drummer. He was so advanced. He was an incredible drummer. But was not finding success in a lot of the traditional, music programs that he was trying out. So he came to Plugged In for a summer camp once, and we grouped him with, in this case, it was 4 other students, but none of them had disabilities. And the way that they gelled and came together, because they just loved the same music. They were Guns N' Roses fans through and through. So every set list was like 99.9% Guns N' Roses. But it was incredible because for for somebody outside looking in, it was so amazing to see how, when provided the right supports and given the right sort of environment, how these relationships form so quickly and then last for so long. So the other students, the non-disabled students in this drummer's band, absolutely fell in love with him and his enthusiasm for music, and they shared that together and returned it to him, and they stayed together as a band for, oh my goodness, at least 4 or 5 sessions. So, multiple years where every single registration, it wasn't, oh, where should we put this drummer? It was, wait a second, we have these 4 students without disabilities who are requesting to be with him.
We had 2 participants, one with an identified disability and one without an identified disability. And both of them were having a really hard time engaging in the different camp activities that we were doing. And at the beginning, we were trying to kind of manage them individually and try to, motivate separately. I kind of told the staff, hey, let's step back for a minute and just kind of let them do what they're going to do so we can see what their interests actually are. And once we did that, the 2 of them started playing together a lot. And staff were like, hey, they're not playing with the group. But I'm like, it's okay, because they are doing their own thing, building a true, genuine relationship and connection right now. The shift in both of these participants was incredible. It was visible. Like, both of them were just glowing. They came into camp excited to see one another. And if one of them was not there, they were like, what's going on? Where is he? Where is she? It was so amazing to see these 2 kids that were both kind of staying in my brain as kids who I needed to figure something out. And that missing piece was just a connection, like human connection with a peer. We ended up fading most of our inclusion services and support from that individual who did need services, because they had a friend to kind of mentor and peer teach them in the games and activities. So
Like, it can start with just creating a welcoming community, creating the opportunity for people to participate in your programming. You don't essentially do anything differently for students with a disability than you would for students without a disability. You get to know them, you support them as best you can, and you help them reach their goals.
usually the things that individuals with disabilities need to be incorporated and included in camp are not large, expensive changes. It's more so a shift in the way that things are delivered and planned for. So if you just kind of take the time to look at what barriers might already be there, whether they're physical barriers or attitudinal, and just kind of starting really slow, and maybe it's starting just inviting people with disabilities to come to your camp. Maybe it's getting your staff trained on just, how to support all individuals. Remember, it's not one person's job. Inclusion can never be one person's job. It is not a program. It's not an activity. It is a culture. It's an environment that every single person plays an important role in. And if it isn't a department-wide or a staff-wide value, then it's really not going to work.
Collaborate with parents and with support staff. They want to help. They want to have an open line of communication. They want to support you. When you think about inclusion, know that it's a village. It takes a big group of people all working together to make it truly successful, and making sure that you're pulling in the people who know your students the most and the best and can provide you the most insight is going to make you not only more successful with inclusion, but it's going to make it so much easier.
Providing the opportunities for them to make legitimate social connection with one another, whether they're in a band room or, playing badminton in the backyard during our summer camp. That's to me, that's what successful inclusion looks like.